I am delighted to be welcoming Julian Russell to the chat room today. Julian, you are presenting at the NLP conference next year. I confess I love your topics. I especially love the meditations. And this year you are presenting on what does life most want for you? So do start by telling us a little bit more about yourself and your topic.
Well, actually the topic's a lot more interesting than myself, but I've been in, it's true, as we'll see. But I've been involved with NLP since 1984, NLP psychotherapist, did a lot of coaching work, written a book with Robert Dilts, written an article in a book with Steve Gilligan, very involved in both of their work in the generative change movement, ran an NLP certification organization in the 80s, but got more interested in taking stuff into business. So there's all of that. Then there's also my spiritual practice as well. And I had a Buddhist master who I spent between 6 weeks and 2.5 months a year with for 20 years before he died. And that was just really, and I had a personal, intimate relationship with him. It really was a special thing. We were talking earlier about, be mature when you have to, but the rest of the time be immature, and he'd be a 6-year-old kid with me, one time we were in a swimming pool and he was not well. His wife was trying to fish him out. So he thought that by hiding behind me, she wouldn't see him. So he was like holding me, hiding behind me, just like a 6-year-old would. And that's the sort of Buddhist master I like,
Yes.
So I'm interested in that. And I'm also more recently become interested in the mystical part of other traditions, in particular Christianity, because that's the language of many, Christianity is the language of many people.
Yes.
And so the title of the workshop, which I'm excited about, which is, what does life want from you?
Yeah.
So the normal psychology, sort of psychotherapy, NLP position is, what do you want from life?
Yes.
What does it look like, sound like, feel like? And that is really great. It's really important to do that work. But also, one of the problems of our society is the overemphasis on the individual. That we're all out for ourselves. We're worried about, our lives and our success and doing all the things we need to do. We're much less concerned about what's happening to the planet or what's happening to our society. And also the impending environmental disaster, the environmental catastrophe that's coming along. And when you look at the really great figures of history who've made a difference, they are actually asking, what does life want from me?
Yeah.
So for me, it's not that one question is better than the other. It's that we need both of those questions. What do I want from life? And what does life want from me? Yeah. And, examples of that, Nelson Mandela, when he was there in the dock, being sentenced to 27 years in prison, that was really an example of resilience on his part. Sometimes when we answer the question, what does life want from me? It may be a tough choice. Greta Thunberg's an example. She didn't say, I'm going to be a world-leading environmental protester. Yeah. She just started her school strikes and the media caught on, so she was following what life wanted from her. Same with, Martin Luther King, but Gandhi, but also people like Steve Jobs and the people around at the beginning of the, the internet revolution. They were responding to the world, to a calling from the outside. So there's, another way of saying the same question is, what's my life calling?
Yes.
And then you say the opposite. How is life calling me?
Yes.
And actually, there are a lot of benefits of actually asking that from the outside.
Yes. Absolutely. I completely understand that and resonate with that. And that, as you say, it comes from that sort of Buddhism and other deep-seated beliefs, I think.
Even actually, all the traditions say that if you do good, you're going to feel better about yourself if you do good for the world. Every tradition says that.
Yes.
So it's like, if I'm doing my calling, doing what life has called me for, doing my calling, you can say either way. I will feel satisfied. Steve Jobs says, there's that wonderful speech, I can't quite remember the quote, but he says, don't be an entrepreneur unless you're really passionate about it, because it's going to be really hard. You're going to be anxious. Things are going to go wrong. Don't do it unless you love it. And one of the secrets of life is, if you really do what you love,
Yeah.
then you'll take the ups and downs. There's always going to be ups and downs, but you'll take the ups and downs much, much better.
Yeah.
Also, your learning track, will really be much stronger because you're passionate about it, you love it.
Yeah.
So that's really the thing, is like, do what you love, do what your bliss is, do what you're passionate about, but also just ask the question the other way around, which is, well, what does life want from me? And I think both, multiple questions is a sign of wisdom. Gregory Bateson would say, ask lots of different questions. So.
And if they all come to a similar answer, then you must be on the right path.
Absolutely, they meet in the middle somewhere. Exactly.
Yeah.
So what am I? And it's what's my life calling, and what are my strengths?
Yes.
And then when I ask the question, what does life want from me? I can say, how can I use my strengths?
Yes.
Because so each of us has a different life calling, a different set of strengths, a different personal history. So each of us is entirely unique. So each of us has a unique contribution to make to the world.
Yeah.
So let's find out what that is. Yeah. And let's do that. And then we can get rid of all the other nonsense, all the other stuff that takes up our time, that's not of high value. Yeah. And you can apply these things, in your professional life, in your personal life, in your relationship with your family and your friends and your community. Be a leader in your community. Yeah. of what's really important to you and what life wants from you. And also in relationship with yourself. It's like not just to expound great ideas, but to try and be an example of it. I mean, that's the toughest part, of course. Yes. It's very easy to talk about what we can do for the planet, but when it involves me taking the tube rather than driving my car, that's a little bit harder.
Yes.
So yeah.
So I mean, this sounds like a huge amount of interesting stuff and deep stuff to pack into 90 minutes. So what will delegates get from your session?
Okay, so this is where I sort of pray to the Buddha called Milton Erickson, because he has, the thing about presupposition and self-fulfilling prophecy is what I really want most, and there'll be some people who do and some people who don't, is people come into the session saying, I've got something tickling on the inside that actually I really want to clarify my life in some way, and it's already tickled, and I want to go to the Julian session and have that tickle is perhaps stimulated more, evoked more.
Yeah.
And that there's a sort of idea of sort of grace, which is that so in that session, what I would want people to take away, I've actually made some notes here, is so first, confidence about what you're doing with your life, so really having more of a sense of, oh, now that's what I'm about. And then secondly, a sense of well-being about that, and some sort of inner emotional connection, and then some hints about the way forward. So how is this? So if you could come to this session and decide that this session is going to be a transition point, if you decided that consciously, your unconscious would say, hey, that's an interesting idea, I'll use it in that way.
Yeah.
And so then the sort of fourth thing that I'm wanting people to take away is that, wouldn't it be lovely if it was a new start of a new phase in your life?
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like evoking those sorts of principles. The thing with the unconscious, it has infinite possibility, but it needs to be asked. And so the job of the conscious mind is to actually say, I'd like to use this as an opportunity to really get clear on the next phase of my life, how I can be even clearer about what I offer to the world. And then if you ask your unconscious that, your unconscious will say, hey, that's interesting, let's do it. The unconscious, that's the whole beauty of the Ericksonian view of the unconscious, which is just super wise, but just needs to be sort of interrogated and talked to and asked. I often wake up 1 minute before my alarm clock goes off, because my unconscious thinks that's quite a cool thing to do. So we can ask these questions. So that's what we'll be doing. So we'll do, I'll do a presentation, we'll have a conversation. We'll do small groups right at the beginning, because so we become somatically engaged. With Zoom, it's too easy to be back here. So I want people will talk to each other for just a few minutes right at the beginning. Then we'll have a deep meditation, and then we'll go and debrief in breakout groups. I mean, that's the thing.
Wait.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to wait, but I'm looking forward to it.
No, it's such a, if you trust the unconscious and you trust the infinite possibility of the unconscious, this stuff is easy. That's the whole thing.
It's just piquing its curiosity, isn't it, really?
Exactly. That's right.
So is there anything that delegates can do beforehand to get a deeper experience during your session?
I think, just to say, oh, that's an interesting question. What does life want from me? Just to think about that, write that question down, or, if you journal, maybe journal about it, or just wander in the park with it, work with it in any way that feels good to you.
Yeah.
And, the other thing, of course, is repetition is always great. So, you might just think about it for 10 seconds, but on, a few different days, whenever you've got a moment, say, what does life want from me? While you're drinking your cup of tea. And if you want to go further than that, you can say, what am I really great at? Am I really leveraging what I'm great at? I was somewhere yesterday with a woman who, she lives on her own. She doesn't leave the house. She works online in IT. She's got a garden. She loves being in her garden. And she loves working in IT. And she doesn't really want to see people. And I'm completely the opposite,
Yeah.
And isn't that great? And so she can do what she needs to do, and I can do what I need to do.
Yes.
So each of us is like, what am I like? What are my strengths? What is my bliss? How do I just focus everything more around all of that?
Yeah.
And
all of those people, all of those types, they're all needed in society.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, she's some sort of wizard hermit. I think she said she was a bit coy about what she does in IT. She does something quite cool, but it really got the sense that she was enjoying her life. She thinks she lives in yeah, I'm going to get into trouble for this, but she lives in Luton. She thinks it's a great place. It's the first person I've ever heard say that, but probably it is, so I just need educating. But she lives in her little house. She doesn't go clubbing, she really doesn't go out very much. Yeah. But she loves her life, and she loves her garden.
Which is all you really could dream of in life, isn't it?
Is to have what you want, but to know yourself, to know what your strengths are, to know what it is that you love, and to see how that meets the world, how that meets life.
Beautiful.
And then with a big pinch of Milton Erickson thrown in.
Always good.
Always good, exactly.
Yeah. So, Julian, obviously you've been to the conference many times. We first met at one of the conferences many years ago. So what does the NLP International Conference mean to you? Well,
I mean, it's the NLP International Conference. I mean, that's what it means to me. It's the place where NLP ideas and people and ideas coming in from, because we can't be a closed system. We can't be just NLPers talking to each other, but where all of those ideas come in and we all stimulate each other. And then we go back to our lives carrying. So I think it's great both for the trainers and the presenters in terms of networking ideas with each other, but also for everyone else, people in the movement, everybody else as well. This is the hub where new ideas get networked around the world, new practices, new ideas, new threads. This is where, it's a sort of the brainstorming chamber in which new fields could be developed, new aspects of NLP can be developed. People can go off and say, that was really interesting, that conversation. I wonder what happened if I modeled X, Y, or Z. So that's sort of really a very, very creative space. And I'm so happy that you're doing a face-to-face version as well this year, because I think sometimes, it's that whole coffee machine thing, or going outside and getting a breath of fresh air and meeting someone else who's getting a breath of fresh air, or you sit in somebody else's seat and you end up talking. You never can tell in those sorts of situations. And then online, I think particularly, I love breakout rooms, because I think that's a chance. It's a great way to meet people. I'm so happy you're doing this.
Slightly more private than the in-person conference, because I know in the in-person conference, if I'm in a breakout space, I'm still very distracted by the 30 other breakout spaces that are happening in the same space.
But both mediums are great, actually. I mean, I love the somatic part of being able to sort of feel somebody. There's something about I think it's probably through smell that we pick up messenger molecules from the other person. So there's a sort of engagement that happens when we're physically face to face. But there is this sort of privacy and connection with people from, the far ends of the world that, that you end up talking from someone from Japan or Brazil or Argentina.
Yeah.
And then you do have there's private conversations. So I think both are wonderful.
Both are wonderful. Thank you, Julian. So for those of you watching, as I said, Julian Russell is presenting at the NLP International Conference. You're presenting the virtual weekend, which is on Saturday, the 20th of May, and beautifully timed actually at 17:30. So a wonderful thing to be able to do, have that meditation and everything before leaving the conference for that day. So really looking forward to that, Julian. Thank you so much and look forward to seeing you next year.
Great, me too. I'm really looking forward to it.